بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد حبيب المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You are today with Brother Bilal at the National Zakat Foundation in London, and we are here today to talk about a very important topic in regard to the zakat, the mis-zakat payments. Not until long ago, we were still receiving many queries from brothers and sisters who are worried about the zakat that they haven't paid in their lifetime. Sometimes we do get cases of people who never paid the zakat for 10, 15, 20, and even 50 years. And it is very sad in a way to know that many people are unable to fulfill one of this important pillar of our religion. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have guided these people, and Allah has made them realize about the mistake that they have made, and now alhamdulillah they are trying to make up for this. This actually reminds me of a hadith narrated in Sahih Muslim. It's a very famous hadith, and I am not going to go into details, but about this person who murdered 100 people, and he wanted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him, and then he was told to go to a certain place where people were worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he was told to go there and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there in that place, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could forgive him. And then what happened is, on his way to that place, he passed away and he died. And just because of his intention of repenting and the effort that he made to try to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, despite him being unable to reach that destination and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but just based on the effort and the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forgive him. So those people who haven't paid their zakat in their lifetime, alhamdulillah, if you have now realized that you have to pay the zakat and you have to make up for it, then this is a very good news for you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most forgiving, and inshallah Allah will accept your effort and your intention as well. Now, going into this important subject, how is it we're going to pay the zakat that we haven't paid in our lifetime? Well, first of all, the best way to look at this is to find out how to actually calculate the zakat. Once we know how to calculate the zakat, then we will be able to actually apply the formula and this calculation for all the previous years of zakat that we haven't paid for. So the basic formula when it comes to paying zakat is to actually look at what are the zakatable assets that I have, and if there is any liabilities, then to minus and deduct these liabilities from the zakatable asset, and you will come out with a net figure, and then you just pay zakat 2.5% on that amount. However, it is better to not make any deduction whatsoever. For that reason, I will not spend too much time today on explaining, the rules of liabilities and what is it that you can deduct, etc. I will try to not go into too much details, and so that you try to, as much as possible, you try to pay zakat on the asset itself. Now, where should you start? The first thing you need to look at before making any calculation is to actually find out about the zakat anniversary date. So what is the zakat anniversary date? The zakat anniversary date is the date in the year when Sharia will want you to calculate your zakat. That date has to be fixed according to the Islamic calendar. This is something very important to remember, There are many people, they have been paying their zakat in their life. However, they have been doing the calculation according to the Gregorian calendar. So for example, many people would pay the zakat on, for example, let's say every year on the 15th of October. Now, this is the wrong way of calculating the zakat. The zakat has to be calculated according to the Islamic calendar. If one was to pay the zakat based on the Gregorian calendar, then what would happen is that you would end up paying less zakat in your life. So this is why it's so important to actually calculate the zakat based on the Islamic calendar. There is an actual way to find out the zakat anniversary date, but again, I do not want to confuse the people here. And what I would say to you is that try to fix the date based on, obviously, on the zakat anniversary date, but choose any date. Whatever date is easy for you to remember, then fix that date for your zakat, for your future zakat calculation. And obviously for all the previous years zakat which you have missed, we will do the calculation according to that date. So for example, today itself I was speaking to a sister, and she chose the zakat anniversary date to be for the 15th of Ramadan. So every year what she will do now, from now on, is on the 15th of Ramadan, she will do her zakat calculation. And for all the previous years which she haven't paid her zakat for, she will do the calculation according to 15th of Ramadan of previous years. So this is what the zakat anniversary date is a fixed date in the Islamic calendar. You may choose any date, but however, choose a date which is easy for you to remember. It doesn't have to be in Ramadan. Many people, however, choose for that day to be in Ramadan because it's easier for them to remember. But you may also choose a day like, for example, 10th of Muharram, 15th of Sha'ban, 10th of Dhul Hijjah. It doesn't matter. But fix a date and keep that date. Do not change that date. Once you have that date which we call the zakat anniversary date, just like you would call, your wedding anniversary date, etc. This is going to be your zakat anniversary date. Once you have the zakat anniversary date, how is it that you're going to calculate the amount of zakat that you need to pay? Well, the first thing you need to look at is, what are my assets? What are the assets on which I have to pay my zakat? Now, commonly, people would pay zakat on the first asset I would list is gold and silver. Zakat has to be paid on gold and silver according to the Hanafi school of jurisprudence. There are a difference of opinions from the other madhahib. I am not going to go into details. However, it is best to pay zakat on the gold and silver that you have, even if this gold and silver that you possess is being used as a personal use. It is still compulsory to pay zakat on that. And there are hadith that point towards this direction. There's hadith narrated in Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Musnad Ahmad, and many others, and even in the Sunan of Imam Abu Dawood, rahimahullah. Now, you have to pay zakat on the gold and silver. And what you would actually need to do is, now, in the case which I mentioned earlier, the sister who will be paying zakat on the 15th of Ramadan, coming into 15th of Ramadan, she will try to figure out the value of the gold and the silver that she has on the day itself. Now, there are people that do pay zakat on the gold or silver that they have, but they use the price for which they have paid that gold or silver jewelry. This is the wrong way of calculating the zakat. You see, the value of the gold and silver keeps on fluctuating. It is never the same. For that reason, every year when it comes to do your zakat calculation, you will actually have to determine what is the value of this gold and silver on the day and include that value into the zakat calculation. Remember one thing, gold and silver are the only metal on which you actually pay your zakat. There is no zakat on diamonds, for example, or any precious stones, or any other metal like iron or anything like that, unless it's part of your business stock. but other than that, there is no zakat on any other metal beside gold and silver. So first thing you need to do is ask yourself, do I have any gold? Do I have any silver? Yes, if you do, then on the day that you need to calculate your zakat, then find out what is the actual value of that gold or that silver. The second thing you need to look at is the cash that you may have. Now, it could be the cash that you have at home or in your wallet, or cash that you may have in your saving account, but also into your current account. Remember, zakat is paid on any zakatable asset that you have on the zakat anniversary date. Now, some people, they may think that, okay, I thought that zakat is only paid on savings. That is not the case. Even if you have a current account, and from that current account you pay for many other expenses like the rent and bills, etc., if there are some cash present in your current account on your zakat anniversary date, you will still have to include the value of that cash into your zakat calculation. The only type of cash that is not zakatable is the cash that you have earned from haram sources. So for example, if you've played the lottery and you won the jackpot, for example, then you're not going to pay zakat on that money, because that money needs to be given away in the first place. If you're a dealer, for example, I know that many people apparently they are dealers, and then they sell drugs, etc., and then they take that money to go to Hajj, etc. That is wrong. Any money earned from haram sources needs to be given away, and there is no zakat whatsoever on that cash. Similarly, any interest that you have earned on the saving account is haram. It needs to be given away. Therefore, you will not include that amount into the zakat calculation. So any cash that you may have in the saving account at home and in your current account, you will include that into your zakat calculation. Once you have added the cash value onto the gold value, if any, or the silver value, if any, then the next thing that you're going to look at is the business stock. Now, let's say, for example, a person, he does trading, he buys things, he buys items, and he sells it on eBay, for example, or Amazon, or he has got a shop, for example, then he will have to pay zakat on his stock. Now, what do we mean by a business asset or business stock when it comes to the zakat calculation? You will include any asset that have been purchased with the intention of reselling. So, for example, you bought a house. At the time of buying the house, your intention was to resell it. Therefore, now, from the Sharia perspective, that house is becoming a business stock, and therefore you have to pay zakat on the value of the house. You may, for example, buy a car. At the time of buying the car, you have the intention of reselling the car. This is becoming a business stock. This is becoming a business asset. Therefore, you will have to pay zakat on the value of that asset. Now, which value is it that you're going to use? Many people think that it is on the cost price of the asset that you're paying zakat. So, for example, you bought a house for £100,000, and therefore, and you haven't sold the house yet. Comes to your zakat anniversary date, the house is dead, it's still on the market. You bought it for £100,000, therefore people might think that, okay, I'm going to pay zakat on £100,000 because this is how much the house cost me. But this is not the best way to calculate the zakat. The zakat will have to be paid on the actual retail price of the asset. So if you bought the house for £100,000, but you're trying to sell it for £150,000, and the house on the zakat anniversary date is there with you, then the zakat will have to be paid on the full £150,000, not on £100,000, not on the cost price only. Now, I know that it might be difficult to actually pay 2.5% of £150,000 on the zakat anniversary date, especially if you haven't sold the asset yet. but the zakat has to be paid. If you do not have the money on that day to pay for the zakat of the asset, what you do is, once the asset has been sold, then from the money that you receive, then just pay the zakat on this asset. So anything that has been bought with the intention of reselling is zakatable. On the other hand, anything that has been bought with the intention of generating an income. So another example I would give you is, you bought a house and your intention is not to resell it, but it is to put it up on rent so that you can get a monthly income. There will be no zakat to be paid on that house. Anything that you bought with the intention of generating an income is not zakatable. If you have a business in which you have certain equipment, so for example, you may have like a little shop where you're selling drinks, for example, and you keep your drinks into a fridge, for example. Now the fridge is your equipment. The fridge, from a Sharia perspective, is not a business asset. Why? Because you didn't buy the fridge with the intention of reselling it. It's just the equipment. Therefore, you will not be paying zakat on it. Similarly, there are many sisters, for example, they into how do you call it, certain trading, like how do you call it, the trade of makeup. So they do makeup for they do bridal makeup, for example, and obviously they buy a lot of makeup so that they can do their business. The makeup that they buy is not something that they buy to resell. It's part of their equipment. They buy it so that they can actually work with it. Therefore, they will not be paying zakat on the makeup. So any equipment that you use to help you generate an income is not zakatable. Only the things that you buy with the intention of reselling will have to be zakatable according to the value of the retail market. Once you have calculated the value of your business asset, the next thing you're going to ask yourself is, do I have any investments? For example, do I have any shares in certain companies? Now, people may buy shares with mainly two intentions. One is as a long-term investment. So they buy shares now so that they can get, how do you call it, dividends on a monthly basis or quarterly. Any shares that have been bought with the intention of receiving dividends, how will you be paying the zakat on that shares? Well, first of all, any dividend that is left in your account on your zakat anniversary date, you will just add that dividend into your cash value. That's the first thing. Secondly, you will have to look at the value of the shares. Because when you have shares in the company, you have some sort of ownership onto some zakatable asset held by that company. Ideally, if you want to figure out how much of the zakat needs to be paid onto the zakatable asset of that company according to the percentage of ownership that you have, ideally the best thing to do would be to go through a balance sheet calculation, which might sound complicated for people. For that reason, at NZF, after many months of researches, we looked into the FTSE 100 companies, and we came out with a proxy, which previously we used to say it was 40%, but now we have changed it. And what we are saying is, if you have shares that have been bought as a long-term investment, pay the zakat on 20% of the value of the shares on the 15th of Ramadan. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say a person bought shares in company A, and with the intention of getting a dividend. Now, on the 15th of Ramadan, let's say, for example, that is his zakat anniversary date, he's going to check what is the value of my shares today. Now, if the value of those shares, let's say, is £1,000, then he will do 20%. He will take 20% of that value, which is £200. £200 is 20% of the full value of those shares. Out of that £200, he will pay 2.5% of zakat on the value of those shares. So previously we used to say pay zakat on 40% of the value of the shares, but now we have changed it and we have made it to 20%. What if you bought the shares not to receive a dividend, but so that you can get a capital growth? You bought the shares, let's say for example today for £1,000 worth of shares, and your intention is to resell it next week for £2,000. You're not bothered with the dividend, you just want your capital to grow. Now, before you could sell the shares, comes your zakat anniversary date and the shares are with you. The value which you're going to use for the zakat calculation will be the retail value of those shares. So you bought the shares for £1,000, and on the zakat anniversary date, the value of the shares is worth, let's say, £2,000. So you will have to include the full £2,000 into the zakat calculation. Once you have worked out how much of investment, how much zakat you need to pay on the investment, you will move on to the liability side of it. Before I move on to the liability side of it, there is one thing I would like to mention, is what if you have pension? If you have a pension, it is very, the zakat on pension is quite complex. So the best thing to do is, if you're not sure whether you need to pay zakat on the pension or not, or if you know that you need to pay zakat on the pension but you don't know how to do it, then the best thing to do is to contact us. We have a free number which is 03333 123 123, and if you select option 2, then inshallah you'll be able to speak to somebody who will be able to advise you on how to calculate zakat on your pension. Or if you have any other question related to the calculation of your zakat, then inshallah feel free to get in touch with us, either by phone or either by contacting us through our website www.nzf.org.uk, inshallah ta'ala. Now we have looked at all the main assets that you need to pay zakat on. Once you have the value of those assets, as I mentioned earlier, the best thing to do would be to just pay zakat on the value. But there is a possibility that you may have some liabilities that you would want to deduct from the zakat calculation. My advice is that do not deduct anything unless there is a necessity to do so. Other than that, do not deduct anything and just pay zakat on whatever you have of the zakatable asset. If you need to make a deduction, then the only deduction you are allowed to make are the debts that have already been incurred prior to your zakat anniversary date, first of all. And secondly, these debts, they will have to be repaid within the next 12 lunar months calendar. So let me give you an example. A person's zakat anniversary date is, let's say, on the 15th of Ramadan. On the 15th of Ramadan, that person calculates the zakatable asset that they have, and they realize that they have £1,000 of zakatable asset. But they also know that 2 weeks prior to the zakat anniversary date, i.e. on the 1st of Ramadan, they were issued with a bill, let's say a gas bill, which amount to £200. And that £200 of bill hasn't been paid yet, but it will be repaid within the next 12 months. That person can technically say, okay, instead of paying zakat on the £1,000 that I have today, I am going to make a deduction of £200 because that £200 is a debt that I need to repay as soon as possible. And instead of paying zakat on the full £1,000, I'm going to pay zakat on £800. Technically speaking, you can do that, but remember, the debt must have, the cost of that debt must have incurred prior to the zakat anniversary date, first of all, and it's something that has to be repaid within the next 12 months. So for example, if you've taken a loan from your brothers and sisters, etc., and you have no intention to repay them within the next 12 months, or maybe they've told you, to repay them whenever, and or to pay them, in few years' time, then you cannot make that deduction whatsoever. I know previously our ruling was kind of different, but now we have changed it. It is better to not make any deduction whatsoever. Similarly, if you have a mortgage, then remember, if it's an interest-only mortgage, you cannot make any deduction whatsoever. If it's a mortgage where you have to make a repayment towards the capital that you have borrowed from the bank, then you are allowed to only deduct up to 12 months worth of repayment of the capital without including the interest. So as an example, a person repays a mortgage every month of £1,100. £100 is the interest amount, and £1,000 goes back towards the capital. Then that person, if there is a need for that person to make a deduction, then what they can say is, okay, I'm going to do £1,000 times 12 months, which is £12,000, and he's going to deduct that amount from the zakat calculation. But that £100 of interest cannot be deducted at all whatsoever. But as I said, brothers and sisters, based on the opinion of many scholars from other madhahib, it is better to not make any deduction whatsoever. So now we have seen how to the zakatable asset, and we also have seen how to make a deduction. Once you know the amount of the zakatable asset that you have, you will pay the zakat on that amount. That calculation is the same calculation you would actually use for the previous years of missed zakat payment. So if this year you're calculating your zakat on the 15th of Ramadan, you're going to do the exact calculation as I mentioned to you, and you're going to go back to what is it that you had on the 15th of Ramadan of last year. Now, what is the best way to do it? On our website, which is the miscalculated.com, there is an actual link at the bottom of the page, and if you, I will tell you what is the name of this website. It is called islamicfinder.org, and if you go onto this website, so if you go on our website, you'll find the link. You just click on the link, and it'll take you into a different website. And on that website, you will be able to actually convert the date from Islamic to Gregorian calendar. So for example, if your zakat, now you have fixed your zakat anniversary date, and in our example, we said it's the 15th of Ramadan. So what you would do is, you would put onto the website 15th of Ramadan, and I'm just going to do it with you now. You're going to do 15th of Ramadan, and you're going to select the year before, which is 1438. 1438 was 15th of Ramadan of 1430. The year 1438 was on the 10th of June 2017. Now you have converted the Islamic date into the Gregorian calendar date. All you need to do is try to go back to your bank statement and find out how much money is it that you had on that date. If there is nothing that is showing on the date itself, so if you check your bank statement, maybe there will nothing that's going to come up on the 10th of June. So what you will do is try to look at how much money is it that you had after that date. Maybe on your bank statement, it will show that you had £1,000 on the 13th of June. Then use the value of the cash value that you had on the 13th of June to pay your zakat. You will convert all your Islamic date in that manner to the Gregorian calendar date, and then you will check your bank statement to find out how much money is it that you had in the past. And obviously, any money that you think that you had at home, then try to make a reasonable estimate of how much you think you would have had, and just include that value into the zakat calculation. There is not 100% formula into these things. All I can say to you is make a reasonable estimate of how much money you believe you had for each year of the missed zakat. For each one of them, you're trying to make an estimate until your heart is satisfied with that estimation. You do not need to exaggerate. You just need to make a reasonable estimation. So for example, many of us would know that it is not possible for us at any one time of the year to have had, let's say, for example, £20,000. So you're not going to make a zakat calculation based on an estimate of £20,000, because that would have probably never happened. But based it on an amount that you believe that, yeah, that sounds possible. Maybe, 5 years ago when I was 25, it is possible in that year I had £5,000. Therefore, go with that estimation and pay zakat on that. The question is, from what time do you need to pay the zakat? According to the Hanafi school of jurisprudence, zakat becomes compulsory from the time you reach puberty. So technically speaking, 1 year after you reach puberty, you need to figure out, is it possible? So let's say a person became adult from a Sharia perspective at the age of 12. Now, zakat would be compulsory on him, and 1 year from that time when he was 12, basically when he becomes 13, he would need to pay zakat on. Now you're going to ask yourself, at the age of 13, did I have any money which was either equal or above the nisab? If you feel that, yeah, maybe, I had some saving, etc., my parents, they were saving money on my behalf, then try to figure out how much money you think you had in that year and pay zakat on that. According to the other school of jurisprudence, zakat is compulsory even if you haven't reached puberty, as long as you had money which was either equal or above the nisab. Other than that, the Hanafi says it only becomes compulsory at the time of you reach puberty, and I think that is the easiest way to try to find out, whether you have some missed zakat from that time, because otherwise it will be difficult to determine whether you had to pay zakat when you were like 5 years old, etc. Unless if you're following, like, let's say, the Hanbali school of jurisprudence or anything else, and you feel, no, I need to pay zakat even before I reach puberty, and there is a way for you to find out, how much money you had at that time, then fine, that is entirely up to you. Otherwise, do the calculation of your missed zakat payment starting from 1 year after you reach puberty. If you're a revert or a convert or a new Muslim, then you would start your zakat calculation 1 year after you embrace Islam. So if, for example, you embrace Islam at the age of 20, then you would calculate your missed zakat payment going forward from the age of 21 and so forth. So this is how we calculate the zakat. Obviously, if you have any question or if there's something that you're not sure about, then feel free to contact us. As I mentioned, our number is 03333123123, and just select option 1, inshallah, and we will be more than happy to help you. Now, once you have calculated your zakat for this year, inshallah, you'll be able to calculate your zakat for all the years that's coming, and you've calculated the zakat for the previous years. Where is it that you need to pay your zakat to? Now, earlier, I know I mentioned that if you haven't paid zakat in your lifetime, then don't worry, it is not the end of the world. Alhamdulillah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you realize that now, I made a mistake and I should have paid my zakat, and now I'm realizing I'm going to make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm going to make up all the previous years of zakat. Alhamdulillah, if you've realized that, that is very good. But one thing as well we need to realize is that during those years that people haven't paid the zakat, then there was a lack of resources in the community. Sometimes we think that zakat is something that is personal. Yes, zakat is an act of worship, it's an act of ibadah, but it doesn't just stop at a personal level. Many people tend to ask the question that, okay, I haven't paid zakat in my life, but I will do tawbah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive me. This is not how it works. When zakat became compulsory upon you, it became a debt on your head, and that debt remains until the time you depart from this world. That is why for many ulama, they say when a person passes away, if he leaves some wealth behind him, then before the wealth gets distributed, we need to check whether he has got some unpaid zakat. And from the wealth that he has left, we need to use that money and make up for all the missed zakat payment that he's got before the money even gets distributed to the inheritors. So zakat is something that cannot be just forgiven. Yes, you may do tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for delaying the payment, etc. And Allah, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you. But there is two things here. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to pay zakat, there is a right towards him to fulfill. But there is also the right of the people to fulfill. Zakat is the right of the fuqara, the masakin. It's the right of the poor people. It's the right of the recipients. And by not paying zakat, we are actually taking away their rights. And who is going to forgive us for that? Are we going to ask them for forgiveness? What if on the day of judgment, they held us accountable for it? What if, for example, I met a brother a few months ago who told me that for 10 years of his life, he slept under the bridge in London. A Muslim brother. Who's going to be answerable to what happened to that brother? Aren't we going to be asked on the day of judgment whether we made the fikr and we had some concern about people like that? Because there are many people like that in the community, many Muslim brothers and sisters, not just people who come from abroad, but many British Muslims as well, who are at this moment in time sleeping on the streets. Many brothers and sisters. And it is our duty to actually look after them. Now you have to realize, for all these years we haven't been paying our zakat, then what has happened to our community? What has happened to the resource of our community? Imagine if tomorrow people were not paying their taxes to the British government, for example, then who would actually be building hospital and roads, etc., and schools, etc.? How are we going to take care of all that? Zakat is that for that purpose, is to look after the community. It's not only to alleviate poverty. Many people think zakat is just to alleviate poverty. Alleviating poverty is just a concept of zakat. But there are many, many other things that can be achieved through zakat payment. For example, spreading Islam. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala included a category under fi sabilillah, spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are cases of supporting the people who actually collect zakat, the administrators of zakat. There are categories of people such as the mu'allafatul qulub, those that we need to reconcile the heart with. Although there are differences of opinion between the ulama whether this category still exists today or not. But according to many ulama from different schools of jurisprudence beside the Hanafis, this category still exists. There are 8 categories in total, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put these 8 categories for a purpose. And therefore, it is very important that we start to think about these things. Why is it that there are 8 categories? What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to achieve by paying zakat? So brothers and sisters, make sure that you do pay your zakat and you think about where you're going to pay your zakat. Yes, many people, there are many things that is happening abroad, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the Muslim abroad, wherever they are, in Palestine, Syria, etc. However, zakat is best paid locally, especially when there is a need to. We can help people abroad by sending our sadaqah. And also we need to realize one thing. Many people sometimes when they talk, they think like we are the only Muslim in this world. The Muslim ummah as a whole, they can help people all around the world with a sadaqah if they want to. When it comes to zakat, it has to be paid in a strategic manner. And that is why at National Zakat Foundation, we are trying to collect this zakat so that we can coordinate not only the collection, but also its distribution in a way that is going to benefit the Muslim community locally, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding. And before I go, I would like to thank you for your time. And inshallah, if you have any questions, then do not hesitate to contact us over the phone, 0333 123 123, and you press option 2, inshallah. and you can contact us through our website www.nzf.org.uk. There is also a website, this zakatguide.co.uk, where you can actually download guides on, for example, the Miss Zakat guide, where you can download the guide there. You can also download the other guides that we have on pension, the Zakat guide on businesses, and the general Zakat guide as well. So do visit our website and do download our guides, and do not hesitate to get in touch with us, inshallah. The services that we provide, alhamdulillah, is free. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.